gonna say it. Somebody should. Let's talk about two time. Let's talk about bum wine, yeah. You're asking the questions that nobody could. Like where the bone thugs and are they in harmony? Help for Snowman.
But not for realsies.
Yeah, I'm not doing it yet.
Oh, I wanted you to do the coffee sip noise. Do you think it picks up on it?
Oh, for sure. I could make it do that. Should that be how I start this?
Yeah, it's classy, and we'll just pretend like you're drinking tea.
I really want to do an audio book where I'm like eating chips the whole time.
Oh gosh, no.
I know, because
Into
everyone
the
would
mic?
hate it. Yeah, into the microphone, like.
I mean, it would have to be a corn chip, like a tortilla chip,
Yeah.
because that's the loudest.
Something crunchy, and I would be eating it as loud, or maybe slurping noodles throughout.
Lee.
I don't know why, just because I hate everybody in the world.
I'm trying to think what if corn chips are the loudest of chips.
Like a Frito.
Maybe.
Maybe a tortilla chip.
I think tortilla chip, because then you'll also have the lovely noise of you trying to like get the whole thing in your mouth
Yeah.
and like that little inhale.
Crunch, 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 and me like breathing intensely.
If you had those salsa verde ones, those usually make your nose run.
Because they're a little spicy.
Yeah.
So I'd get a little in there as well.
How can we make this
But
hellish
juicier.
for a listener?
I should just write like a short story and then do an audiobook version. And then it's totally ruined by that. Like a cute romance story or something. Trying to think what would be very incongruous, or like how to be successful at narrating an audiobook. And then
Or something like really intense, where like thriller, where you're like, you know, whenever you're like, you have to be quiet and don't go in the room, but then you're just being loud.
crunch,
Yeah.
crunch. Or maybe you could be on crunching popcorn while I'm reading this story.
Yeah. I think the problem here is that neither of us chew with our mouths open because we're polite humans. So we would have to remember to just chew with our mouth open in like the most obnoxious way possible.
That's true. Okay.
Where did we leave off?
When we last left off, a guy ate a piece of shit.
Oh God.
With a
Oh
knife and
God. Oh
fork.
God. Oh God. Why?
so that he could say what the original shitter was eating, and therefore we could replicate. Our hero could replicate it. And that's where we left off.
Good.
I should have asked you to summarize where we were in
We
the story.
didn't need to. I literally had blocked that out of my brain.
That's a kind of amazing that you had blocked that out, because that seems very unblock-outable to me.
Well, it's back in there, so
You're
thanks
welcome.
for that.
We've successfully defeated the curve of forgetting. And now
And
you
it was
can
like
remember
in the
forever.
pocket of his tooth.
Yeah.
I remember. Thanks. Oh, that's horrific. I hope anyone listening to this has as vivid a memory and like visual memory as I do.
Yeah, you have a very like keyed in memory when it comes to visuals. Like if I describe something gross, you'll be like, no, stop. Don't tell me this because
see
it's
it.
too gross. Well, I'll read this first short section because it kind of actually brings us right up to speed.
Oh, okay.
I started my new diet the next day. I was supposed to start that same day. What? I was supposed to start that same day right after the sound came, but I couldn't keep any food down on account of the shit eating. Remember when the guy ate that log of shit off a plate with a knife and fork and everything? I know you look like you're about to
I
cry.
am crying. There's a tear.
I know I just told you about it, but see, this is what I'm saying. When you see someone eat shit, it doesn't just go away. It haunts you a lot. So that was actually a perfect... You're
I
crying.
am crying. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's too vivid.
This audiobook's going to go out into the world, and people are going to want to hire you to listen to their, because like, if you don't know, Poonmaster Flex would be great. Like if you're reading a horror novel and something scary, she'll like gasp, you know, she'll be like, no, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, there's a tear rolling down her face right now.
On both sides.
On both sides.
So gross.
It's just nice as an author, if I can call myself
Get
that.
this reaction from a reader, like that's what I was going for.
Yeah, it's like
Validating.
It worked. What I did worked in terms of, you know, in Jurassic Park fashion, I never asked, should I? But the question I have always had is, did I? And the answer is yes, I did. I successfully disgusted at least one person to an extreme degree.
Yeah.
To tears.
Congrats.
I started my new diet to replicate the scientists the next day, for real this time. Turns out this asshole scientist was vegan, and he was on a no sugar thing too. Normally I wouldn't care about what someone eats unless it's hilarious or a piece of shit. For the full story on that one, see the earlier chapters of this book. Kind of hard to believe you forgot that already. You should maybe see a doctor or get checked out. But this would have been a great excuse. If the guy ate nothing but donuts, I'd be on nothing but donuts for weeks, and it'd be like, hey, what can you do? It's a living. Or if he ate the finest steaks every night, hey, I would have to eat tons of fillets. Even fast food would have been great. Did you know they have chicken cylinders at Burger King? They don't call them chicken cylinders, which makes sense because that doesn't sound like something you want to eat, but it's something they make, and then they sell chicken cylinders to people like it's a normal thing to eat. And I know this because I spent all my time eating disgusting healthy food and staring at fast food menus and fantasizing. Instead of weird shapes of chicken, this guy is into quinoa, which I didn't realize was the same thing as quinoa, that disgusting shit they have in the rice aisle. Why people buy that is beyond me. The rice is right fucking there. The answer is staring you in the face. It's an ancient Chinese secret that's not even secret. It never was. They were just like, here's a thing that's not too horrible for eating. And we ignore that and eat this shit, these like rice balls instead. I spent a lot of time shitting and a lot of time poring over fast food restaurant menus. Did you know Wendy's still has baked potatoes? How do you, as Wendy's, have the guts to sell baked potatoes? Isn't that like McDonald's selling bananas or something? Anyway, after my vegan experience, I can tell you two things. 1, switching to a vegan diet gives you heinous shits. 2, switching away from a vegan diet after you finish a heist also gives you heinous shits. But after my stomach settled in, I was able to focus and produce some shits that looked almost just like the scientists. Same consistency, same size. I bet you're wondering whether we brought the Som in again to eat my shit, compare my shit to the scientist's shit. Well, it turns out he went ahead and shot himself. Probably because he ate human shit. So instead we just brought the same kind of toilet the scientist had, copied the scientist's toilet setting, and then put his old shit in there to set the combination, then swapped it out for one of mine to see if it matched, and boom, it matched. For a hot minute, I was hot shit. Then things took a turn. There's a competing crew going for the lab, Ace said. He smashed his fists down on the tabletop when he said it, and a bunch of dishes and stuff rattled. That's when I figured out why he must have put out all those dishes a few minutes ago. So when he smashed his hands down, it sounded impressive. Good call, Ace. Reginald didn't react, even with all the dishes. I'm aware of the other crew. We don't have anything to worry about. Oh no, Ace said. Did you hear they've got their own shitter? Reginald did react to that. He reacted by looking at me with hate in his eyes. To tell you what Reginald's hate look was like, have you ever owned a cat? And have you ever put clothes on that cat? And when it's disabled and flopping around on the floor, it takes a break and looks at you, and you know you have a look of pure joy on your face.
Thinking of our old cat.
And you know it's thinking that it's going to figure out how to kill you no matter what it takes, even if it has to do it by lighting itself on fire and running around the apartment. Like, even if it means a horrible burning end to the cat's life, he thinks it's worth it to get you good. That's Reginald's hate look. You're about to cry again. First was out of disgust and then out of love. Oh, God. Okay. And I swear in that moment, I first noticed Reginald's eyes were cat shape. No, okay, that's bullshit. I don't want you to think there's a plot twist later or something where Reginald is a secret cat man. That would be so cool, but if that happened, this book would probably be called, like, Invasion of the Catmen, and their names is Reginald or something. Something like that, but better. I had a long time to think of the real title for this book, and only like a second to come up with a fake title for that other book. Cut me some slack. Ace smiled and said, "That's right, there's a second shitter out there." Then I jumped in. "Hey, wait, am I the first shitter?" Ace said, "Of course you're the first shitter." Reginald said, "I don't like to use the coarse language, but I have to concur with Ace on this matter. Of course you're the first shitter. Who did you think the first shitter was, if not you?" I had to think about that one. I guess because I hadn't thought about who else it might be. I didn't want it to be me, but you can't want something bad enough to make it true. One look at my disappointing butt shape can tell you that. "Well, this is not good," Reginald said. "Want me to stab him?" Ace said. Reginald tented his fingers in front of his face, and Ace might have tented his pants in front of his penis. He really likes stabbing people. Yes, Reginald said. "Yes, I think that's a good solution." Ace said, "Good, because nothing would make me happier than stabbing a shitter." I said, "Can you guys maybe stop tossing around the word shitter? I'm not in love with that." Ace said, "What do you care? He'll be dead in an hour." I said, "Okay, it's just you guys calling him a shitter this much makes me think that when I'm not around, you call me a shitter all the time." "We absolutely do, duh," Ace said. Reginald said, "Yes, again, I'm compelled to agree with Ace. We just called you a shitter to your face. Wouldn't any reasonable person conclude that we're also doing so when you're not around?" Ace said, "Unless we're calling you shitter to your face and something worse behind your back." Then we were all silent. I think we were all trying to come up with something worse that meant shitter but was even worse than shitter. Shitter's pretty bad. I can't say I'm surprised we didn't get anywhere beyond shitter.
Remember when I was saying that was like the most I'd heard puke in a 2-minute span?
Yep. We now done that for shit
We
for
have.
you.
Yep.
You know what's funny about telling this story? When you tell it in person, people always doubt you. Seriously, they all of a sudden start doubting you. They all of a sudden start doubting when you say that you can eat the same foods, concentrate, focus, and shit just like another person. Someone who has never in their life thought about trying to shit just like someone else all of a sudden has lots of opinions on what is and isn't possible when it comes to trying to shit just like someone else. It's so annoying. I don't go listen to a particle physics guy and be all, "Oh, I've never thought about particles or physics ever in my life, but here's how you're wrong and stupid and ugly and probably fart a lot." People think they've taken a fair share of shit, so they know what's up. Particle physics is different, but shitting they understand. They've never been in a head-ROM collider or whatever, but they've collided a shit with a toilet bowl many times. Been right at the epicenter. But you know what? No, you don't know. If, when I tell you I was reading the same magazines as the professor in order to get into his headspace, and that helped me get closer to his perfect shits, if you nod along like that makes sense, then you know something about shits. If you don't, then you don't know shit about shits. My editor told me to make this part of the book instructional, but I'm not going to, because I'm the best there is, and the last thing I need is some young upstart stealing my anal thunder. Besides, one advantage of this book being so terrible is that I'm almost positive the editor isn't going to get this far. I wouldn't. I wouldn't have gotten past the part of eating human shit, even if I got that far. I lived it in real life and barely survived. Do you like how that just keeps coming back up over and over?
Yeah.
But like I was saying, I read the same things on the toilet. You know what this guy liked to read? Skateboarding magazines. Old skateboard magazines from the 90s. Especially this one where I guess Larry Flynt decided to publish a skateboard magazine. Let it never be said that Larry Flynt doesn't know what people want. I always liked Larry Flynt. I felt like he was the anti-Hugh Hefner, that he wasn't pretending he was some cool dude in a smoking jacket. He was a smut peddler, damn it, and he was proud of it. He was one step removed from the guy selling tasteless nudes by opening his jacket on the street and revealing a bunch of Polaroids pinned inside, $2 each. These skateboard magazines were my downfall. They caused me a big ass problem. That's not supposed to be hyphenated, by the way. Not big ass problem, a big problem, and the problem was happening in regards to my ass. See, in one of the magazines, a writer named Dave Carney wrote this article about using Nair to cut down on the hair around his asshole. This is all true, by the way.
I actually figured it was.
It's all in this book behind me called Boob by Dave Carney. It was kind of a brilliant idea because, like he put it, when you have a hairy asshole, it's like shitting through a mesh net. I was doing a lot of wiping thanks to trying to replicate the professor's experience. I was using the same cheap government toilet paper the cheap government brought him for work. If I ever get famous and do a PSA, it's going to be about how offices and schools should get nicer toilet paper. You've got one life, one asshole. That'll be the slogan. So I figured maybe I'd use some Nair on myself. I did just like Dave instructed, filled a basin with Nair and squatted down into it. The first mistake I made was not finishing the article to see whether it worked for Dave and what the results might be. The smell came before the pain, weirdly. The smell was pain, if I can be poetic for a second. Fuck you, I can write meaningful shit all up and down if I feel like it. You watch it or I'll re-release this book as one long poem with a bunch of weird line breaks in it, like Shakespeare, and we'll see how you like it when I use words like forsooth and exwint. The smell was pain. Burning shit and hair and chemical. I imagine it's what it smelled like when they burned those shit barrels in Nam, except it was coming from a spot on my body that was not too far from my face, especially since I was bent over, asshole spread in the mirror to watch the progress. And there was a little bit of a berry smell, too. I don't know what geek decided berry smell would make Nair a better experience, but that person is stupid and definitely never tried their own product on their butt. Not to be outdone by the smell, the other kind of pain, the normal kind you feel instead of smell, was quick and it was fierce. Get a vigorous rub down with sandpaper right on the button, you'll know what I was feeling. You know how if you have salsa that's too hot and you just can't stop the burn? That's where I was at, but imagine you butt-chugged the salsa and maybe the secret ingredient in the salsa was an opened-up 9-volt battery. I was breathless, lying on the floor, no pants but a shirt, and as the pain left, there was this huge relief because I figured I would never feel pain worse than that. So in a way, it was good. One of the worst things to experience when I was alive was over. They say people who survive plane crashes end up really happy. This was my plane crash. The bad side, the newly smooth lanes threw me off my game. The professor must have had a hairy asshole because when I changed the environment downstairs, I couldn't shit like him to save my life, which is literally what I needed to do. He just looks so...
What is in your brain? What is happening in there? Where do these ideas come from? I know there's more stuff like this in your brain that hasn't come out for the world.
Maybe a month or two ago, Poonmaster Flex made a huge mistake and was like, because I was like, I think I probably tell you like 50% of the thoughts that I have. And she was like, I want to hear everything. And I was like, I don't think you do. And she was like, I do. Yeah. And it was like almost instant regret. Instant nonstop regret for the last couple months of just like, what was I thinking? Ace picked at his teeth with his knife, and he kept slipping and nicking his gums, and then he'd say, damn it, and Reginald would sigh, and that's how we were passing the afternoon when I decided to tell them I quit. There was just no way I could take that shit now that I'd waxed the lane down there and screwed everything up. Guys, gentlemen, I quit. Reginald tented his fingers. He said, what are you playing at here? I said, I just don't feel good about taking what's not rightfully mine. Ace burst out laughing, and then so did Reginald. Reginald calmed down, removed his glasses, wiped a tear, and said, do you know why I steal? I said, because there's stuff you don't have that other people have, and if you steal it, then you can have the stuff, and you don't not have the stuff anymore? Ace said, what? Reginald waved him off. I steal because I'm not good at anything else. If I could make the same money, live the same lifestyle by being a software engineer, of course I would do it. Software engineers don't go to prison. Well, no, I said, but maybe they should. I never finished a single King's Quest game because those things were so goddamn impossible. Roberta Williams is on my most wanted list. I'd put her in prison where she had to collect a series of items in order to escape. Put a banana in a fish, why not? Reginald said, I'm not a good software engineer, or actor, or barista. I'm good at stealing. Ace said, I think what Reginald is trying to say is like this. Do you think I would stab people if I had something I was better at? Yes, I said. You love stabbing. You do it for free, I bet. You're fucking nuts. Ace tapped the side of his blade on his forehead. Yeah, you're probably right, he said. Reginald said, there is no other life for you. That's what you fail to understand about this. Once you're in, all paths lead the same way. You've got one option, and it's to defecate to unlock the door and make it all work. He leaned in closer. Your feces is the linchpin of the whole operation. Ace said, yeah, and also I'll fucking stab you if you don't do it. Reginald nodded. I said, what if I try and it doesn't work, but I tried to make it work? Stab, said Ace. What if I call the cops and bring them in and tell you so you can get away and no one gets in trouble but me? Stab, said Ace. What if look, Ace said, the only thing that results in you not getting stabbed is taking that shit and making it work. That's it. And even then I might stab you. No, Reginald said, no, you won't stab him if he succeeds. I might, Ace said. No, Reginald yelled. There are infinite scenarios that result in you stabbing him. Success is the only one that doesn't result in that stabbing. The odds are in your favor, but I'm confident our friend here will deliver the goods. More like deliver the bads, I said. No one laughed, so I said, because shit is gross and you said goods? Still nothing. So I changed goods to bad to be more like what's going to happen.
There we go.
I'll spare you how long this went on and how in-depth I got with the joke, still thinking that if I explained it, everyone would laugh. Just know that we wasted an entire planning day on me explaining a joke that it turns out they both got right away, they just didn't like it. The point isn't really the joke anyway. It's that I had to go through with the heist. I had to deliver the bads. The bads. I underline and capitalize that just in case you didn't get it. With this particular joke, I have a history of that happening. The only way to make it work with my fried asshole was to really become what I always knew I was meant to be, the Zen master of shitting. I decided, ... And then we have another editor's note. I have to make a note in here because there's a misspelling.
It was a really good editor.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a special editor's edition. I think what it means is the editor was a little special. If you get my drift.
Not trying to speed read through this so they didn't have the visual of eating human poop. I can skip forward a couple of pages and I bet I won't miss anything important. Like over explaining a joke for a day.
If this book could be accused of one thing, it wouldn't be skipping over that someone ate shit one time. That would probably be the most driven home point from the entire thing. Almost like the book built just to that point.
Yeah.
Except that wasn't even part of the original idea. It just came to me.
You just capitalized on it.
You know, sometimes writers will claim that they're connected directly to God. And just, they're not really coming up with things. They're writing down what comes. They're a conduit. Passing on what comes into them.
Been reading Under the Banner of Heaven, and boy, that sounds like some stuff that's in that book.
Doesn't it? Isn't that interesting? Editor's note. In many books, there is a moment of spiritual awakening. Sometimes this enhances the story, and sometimes this makes the story worse. It leads the reader down a false path. In this case, it's a little bit of both. The narrator's awakening, though oft analyzed in literary criticism and by those of Zen movements in the world of semi-professional defecation, is, well, crude. It's vile and disgusting, and because it's unnecessary here, it has been omitted from this publication. The narrator has agreed to this change with the understanding that he'll retain the rights to publish his method later on, and he has stated that for the purposes of this manuscript, you can just imagine the training montage from Rocky IV, but with more toilets, no women, less snow, but still some snow, and about the same number of John Cafferty songs, one which is Hearts on Fire. Unfortunately, our hero was able to get back up to speed. So there you go. This whole editor's edition thing really let me skip writing things that I didn't care to write. It was genius. This is one of my most genius literary techniques in terms of dissatisfying storytelling, but satisfying writing process. The day of the heist was, note to editor, look up weather for that day, and that's how I'll start this section. I forget what the weather was. You set the scene. The tech guy radioed into the warehouse from where he was parked across the street from the lab. He was on a laptop. We were worried that it would look weird because he couldn't rent one of those vans without windows. It turns out they don't rent those kinds of vans to people like Ace, which is smart. Car rental places, you've done something correct. I don't know if you did it on purpose, but you stumbled into not renting cars to people who stab a lot of other people. Lucky for us, right across the street from the lab was a library, so the tech guy just sat in his sedan with his laptop on his lap, and if anyone looked at him sideways, he was just supposed to pretend he was cranking it to whatever he was looking at using the library Wi-Fi from outside. It's the perfect cover. We've all been there. The tech guy refused to let the wheelman drive his car, so the wheelman quit. I can't blame the tech guy. The wheelman was awesome at driving, but you know how you drive different when it's not your car? Like how you'll throw it in drive when you're still reversing, or you'll see how close you can drive to a wall, or you'll put Vaseline all over the tires so you can do an awesome burnout. I think the wheelman drove every car like it wasn't his car. The second story man was off the team. We had another argument about where a second story man belongs. The lab is underground, which we all figured made the main floor the second story, but he got all enraged and told us that a main floor is not a second story, regardless of its elevation. He made a pretty good point about a basement being a mile higher in the air in Denver than it is in Portland, but anyway, he was just kind of being a shit and he left. The third story man left too. I'm told third story men mostly follow what second story men do, and that stereotype is true in my experiences so far. What do main floor men do? Who knows? The lady didn't leave, exactly. Okay, she got stabbed by Ace. He killed her. This was kind of a big deal. Not a great look for Ace to stab the only lady on our team, but as much as I'm not a fan of Ace, I have to say I think he would stab absolutely anybody for almost no reason. He's an insane murderer, but he's not a sexist. When it comes to stabbing, as far as I can tell anyway. In a way, him stabbing that woman was very equal opportunity. We should all be more like Ace. The old man just up and died. He was old as hell. He took with him a wealth of knowledge. That, and I'm pretty sure, a pen I'd been carrying around. He took that pen to the grave, and I'll never forgive him. Hence this writing. Not gonna lie, about 10% of the reason I wrote any of this down was just so everyone would know what an idiot asshole that old man was and how he stole my pen. Prove me wrong, old man's relatives. I dare you. So on the day of the heist, we were down to me, Ace, Reginald, and the tech guy. It was sort of a problem at the time. We almost didn't go through with it, but now I'm sort of glad we lost so many other team members because I don't have to tell you in this book where everyone was and what they were doing. It's way easier this way. My advice to young writers is if you think a life thing is about to happen, see if you can get most of the other people out of the area so you don't have to talk about them. Ace showed up to the warehouse in an all-black suit covered in knives. He had knife holsters in places that didn't even make sense. All four sides of his legs, like front and back, and then the sides, knives. Knives on his shins and thighs. Reginald made him take off the ones on his knees because he couldn't walk right, and the ones that made it so Ace couldn't bend his elbows. Also, he had to take off the knife quiver on his back because all the knives were clanging around, and because they weighed a combined 85 pounds, and because of a pretty productive discussion we had regarding when a knife is no longer a knife and becomes a sword. For the record, Ace insisted that his long knives were still knives, but conceded that perception is reality, and everyone in the lab would think he had swords, and he didn't want to spend the rest of his life insisting to other knife guys that he'd never use swords. This is a point of pride in the world of knife guys. Reginald was dressed normal, for him. Suit, bow tie. He did have cufflinks on with a little cat wearing a mask, and I just realized those were cat burglar cufflinks. Shit. I had this whole thing about how they were dumb and must have been a gift or something from a job that went wrong and his friend got shot, or maybe they belonged to the old man. Now I get it. It was just a joke. Man, see, this is why it's important to explain your joke when nobody laughs. I was wearing a suit, but not a regular suit. It looked like a regular suit, but it had a Velcro trap door in the back so I could sit down quick. dump, unlock the door, and then, well, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do after that. This would have been a good thing to think about, it turns out. But there are lots of good things to think about. We can't think about them all. Me, Ace, and Reginald went in. Me in my suit, Reginald in his matching suit. We both had badges on. Not cool badges like a sheriff, but badges that just look like your driver's license. I hate how offices call those things badges. What a scam. If you're giving me a badge, it should be shiny metal, and it should look like it'd kill someone if I threw it at them hard enough. Not just a dopey picture of me looking like a dope. I looked dopey in my picture, by the way. The guy who made them, he said to smile but not show teeth. I looked like a grandpa who didn't have any teeth to show. I swear, every time I get a picture like this done, they have a new weird rule that all the DMV people and ID people probably come up with at their parties and be like, oh, I bet that'll make them look hilarious. The tech guy was in Reginald's earpiece, which was disguised to look like a hearing aid. I always thought they should make headphones disguised as a hearing aid. That way, if you're at a boring thing like a baptism or a baby shower, where all the presents are for a baby who isn't even there yet or whatever, you could listen to whatever music you want. At least it'd be less boring. Why don't they play Rocky Like a Hurricane and stuff like that at baptisms? It's what we all want, and it really livens things up. I can tell you that from experience. Reginald was talking quietly to the tech guy, and I kept asking what they were talking about. Then Reginald would try and tell me, then the tech guy must have been confused because Reginald would say, not you, this idiot. I would be more mad, but at least it sounded like he thought me and the tech guy were both idiots. When we got close to the front door, I said, radio silence, right? Reginald said, you're on radio silence the whole time. That's why you don't have a radio. This is normally when I think Reginald would have said something to boost my confidence, but because I said that stupid thing about radio silence, he just walked up to the door, swiped his key card, and we were in. Government buildings are so extremely boring. You know how in the movies they always show you that one room that's all lit up? There's a million buttons around screens and a radar that cool lit up thing with sweeping around a circle. That's the one good room, I bet, because the rest is just hallways and shit. It looks like an elementary school, except there aren't as many bulletin boards in the hallway with stuff people colored. Instead, there are bulletin boards that have stuff like other jobs people can do that sound boring as hell, or they have a note about not flushing tampons down the toilet. If someone out there can invent a sewage system that handles tampons, instant millionaire. So, I said, I kind of have to take a shit. Reginald rubbed his face with his palm. Yeah, he said, I assumed. That's what we've been preparing for these past weeks. I said, okay, but I need to go soon. How are we going to make sure the professor isn't already in there? You leave that to me, Reginald said. It turned out the professor was seduced by a lady Reginald hired to seduce him. She had to seduce him a few times, I guess, to make him stay home from work. I hope someday I'm important enough to get seduced and taken advantage of, because then I'd be important and I would get to have sex with someone whose entire job it was to have sex with me. I think they'd be better at it, probably. Anyone can do their own taxes, but the pros get you a better return, right? We made our way to the toilet. It was different than the setup we'd planned for. Instead of being in an attached bathroom, it was in the hallway. There was a stall, then the toilet, just outside the lab door. That's weird, I said. Yes, Reginald said. I went in the stall and turned around to close the door, but Reginald was in there with me. I said, dude, they're going to see your feet if someone comes down the hallway. He looked around. There wasn't a back to the toilet to stand on, no hidden spots. Normally, if you have two in a stall, the trick is to bring in a paper bag. I learned that from my puking days. I used to do this trick at bars where I'd puke between someone's legs while they sat on the toilet, and I never got any puke on the other person. Gross? Sure, but you know what? Just gross. Ignore that. That was dead-end advice. Your face. Sometimes you make a disgusted face and you kind of look like Beaker from the Muppets.
Yep.
Like it's like a disgust and horror.
Mm-hmm. You told me that and I saw that face in the mirror last night. Thanks.
You're welcome. I love it. It's a hilarious face. It's so good. I said, there's only one option. You have to sit on my lap. Reginald said, no, I'll just walk down the hall and back. I said, oh yeah, I guess there was more than one option. And yours is better. I'm glad you didn't listen to me. You always know the right time to not listen. I was trying to force that teamwork conversation again, but Reginald didn't bite. Maybe because I'd already opened the trap door and was on the shitter and was farting a lot. That's so dumb. After he left, I waited. The professor, based on what I'd learned, didn't strain. He let the poop just fall out of him, almost like a Zen thing.
You just made your hand motion.
Fall out of him.
Yep.
Just, it flows away.
Great.
Like the poop isn't pushed down. See, that's why it's important you're here. Otherwise, people would have no idea that I was making that motion.
That's smooth motion.
Yeah. Almost like a Zen thing. Like the poop isn't pushed out. It just happens to pass through the same space as your body for a while, and then it continues on its way.
That was great, and I'm so mad it's about poop.
That it's so Zen,
Yeah.
but it's about taking a dump. A giant dump is not an excess, and a tiny one is not in wanting.
No, you can stop.
I don't know if I mentioned how in touch I was with poop at this point. I think that part of the book is probably getting taken out by the editor. I'd become the Zen master of the toilet. I'd mastered the professor's poops ages ago, and for the last couple weeks I was just messing around. I could make different shapes, you know, like those Play-Doh things that make a star shape. I could do a star, Jewish star. Then I did swastika. I'm not a Nazi, I just wanted to see if I could, and after I did the Jewish star I got the idea, and well, it seems like a swastika made out of poop, so that seems okay to do. I don't think it made my butthole racist, at least as far as I can tell.
This is horrific.
I heard the log drop into the toilet bowl, waited, and then a buzzer went off and a green light turned on. I got up, opened the door, and went in the office to behold the greatest treasure I'd ever lay eyes on. Hopefully when they lay out this book, there's like a big space between the end of the last section and this one. A whole page apart or something. There's not. Because now I'm going to tell you that the treasure was boring. Don't get me wrong, it was valuable, but it wasn't like a pile of gold you could swim in or a vat of liquid gold you could swim in, provided you wore some kind of suit to protect you from scorching temperatures, or some kind of other setup that paired the unlikely activities of being close to a lot of money and swimming. It was just some file cabinets and a computer, and one of those stupid coffee machines that makes that shitty instant coffee they have in offices all the time. I heard a knock outside, and I let Reginald in, and Ace. Ace was covered in blood, and he looked really happy.
Oh.
I would be happy for him just because he looked so happy, except I'm pretty sure he only looked that happy because he killed a bunch of people. Reginald said, "This is it." He opened one of the file cabinets, took out a folder, leafed through, and said, "Let's go." I know, anticlimactic, right? We did all this work for a folder? A folder where I don't even know what was inside? Doesn't it seem a little like we were cheated somehow? Aren't you all of a sudden on my side when I tell you that I opened the other file cabinet to take some files of my own? And since you're on my side, doesn't it make you less mad at me that an alarm went off when I did that? "You cretin," Reginald said. Ace pulled out a long knife. I was almost positive it was a Lord of the Rings movie prop, but I didn't say anything. Ace said, "Can I kill him now?" "Please," Reginald said. Ace walked closer to me. I opened the folder and started throwing stuff at him. The only thing in there I recognized was an instruction manual for the shitty coffee maker. Who keeps that? It's not that hard. I thought this guy was a scientist or something. Then the door busted down, straight off the hinges. Reginald was squashed underneath. Ace turned and started stabbing the people who ran through the door. There were a lot of them, and he did a pretty good job, although to be honest, I thought he'd be better at knife stuff. He flailed around a lot. I think it just worked because, you know, he's fucking crazy, so most people are probably thrown off by a crazy guy covered in knives. I put my hands up and told them they didn't have to tackle me. I didn't have knives or anything to fight with. They must have believed me because they just pepper sprayed me and took me and threw me in a cell. The government building had a jail inside. Now I'm having a memory that I think something else terrible happens. Okay.
You don't remember your own book?
I don't remember what happens to Ace, but I feel like it's horrible.
Good. This will be a surprise for you, too.
This is going to be delightful.
Yeah.
The government building had a jail inside, like a classy stadium, or maybe a very not classy stadium. Ace was in the cell next to mine, sitting on his toilet, which I could totally see. Why have the toilets facing each other like that? Seems crazy. Wow, that was some heist, I said. Ace didn't answer. Not in words, but he glared at me. Wait, no, he was staring daggers. That's way better for a knife guy. Now I remember. Do you have an escape plan? I said. Yeah, he said. I hid a knife up my, and then he grunted hard. Ace, I said, based on what's happening and everything that's happened in the story so far, wink, I think you're telling me you put a knife in your ass. Ace fell off the toilet, and I could see specks of blood on the seat. This was a moment. The kind of moment where I could have been bitter and let Ace die trying to poop out a knife. But that would make me the bad guy in the story. And I'm not the bad guy in the story. Am I coming off as the bad guy? I said, just admit you need my help. This is the one time I can be useful to you. We can do this together. I stretched my hand out through the bars into his cell, and Ace crawled across the floor. He didn't look so good. He was very pale, and he had no pants on and blood coming from his butthole. Those were the main things that made him look not good. His hair was a little greasy too, but when there's butt blood, greasy hair doesn't mean a lot, right? I grabbed Ace's hand and I said, okay, listen to me. You have to forget about shitting out a knife. I mean, that's what's happening, but forget about that. Ace screamed a little. Just think about the knife already through your butt. That's where it'll be, outside your butt. Just think about that. Focus on that image. Ace gagged a little, which made sense. It's a gross image, a knife coming out of your butthole. Ace squeezed my hand, and I saw the tip of what looked like a knife. You're doing it, buddy, I said. The knife burst out of his butt, with also a lot of blood and poop and cords and stuff. I don't know what... I don't know what's inside a human body looks like. I don't know what inside a human body looks like, but from what little I've seen, it's disgusting. I couldn't even sleep with a woman for months after this because I couldn't stand the idea of my penis being that close to all those guts. Then I couldn't sleep with a woman for several months after that because nobody would sleep with me. But the first months of that dry spell, that was all about me not wanting to sleep with anyone. And only the second half, maybe the last third or so, was about them not wanting to sleep with me. Ace was dead. No doubt about it. When all the stuff that's usually inside goes to the outside, that's never a good thing. There's no such thing as a guy who turned inside out and was pretty much fine other than that. And unless I wanted to share his fate, I needed to get out of there. Well, and also I needed to not put a knife in my butt, which I wasn't planning to do, but you get the idea. Editor's note. At this point, the narrator claims that by connecting to the Zen Lords of Shitting, he found he could create, by his anus, a key that fit to the lock of his cell. According to the police reports, the government agency immediately contacted emergency services when they found Ace dead in his cell, and when the police arrived, they took the narrator into custody as well. We're not some insane company from The Running Man or something, one worker is quoted as saying. We were just going to hang on to them until the police got there. The narrator was eventually let go. It's unclear whether this is because of his ramblings about the Zen mastery of shit, or if they just figured he was incapable of masterminding anything like this, but he lucked into a pretty good public defender who argued that all he did was crap in a toilet out of confusion and desperation, and after extensive interviews, this seemed not only plausible, but more likely than anyone involving him in a delicate heist. Can he shit out keys to locks? These are the questions that will ring throughout time in multiple pressings of this book. You're probably wondering what else is left to say. Well, I wanted to do that part where you say what happened to everyone. Ace is dead. Duh. I just told you all about how he tried to shit out a knife. I think he might have made it if he listened to me, but he was too proud. Ultimately, that pride was his undoing. That and the knife in his ass. The tech guy disappeared. Tech guys are smart. That's why they're out in a van like 10 blocks away. When everyone gets in trouble, they turn off all the shit and drive away, and then they make an app that helps you hook up with people who lost their limbs, or with farmers, or with people who don't like birthday cake very much, and they make $1 bajillion through old-fashioned work. Not much work. It takes them like 5 minutes. And I guess it's not old-fashioned because they just type some stuff on a computer and somehow a dating app comes out of the computer. I don't know how that works. The old man was already dead. I told you that. I don't think I told you he also died shitting out a knife. Nobody knows how that happened. I thought about telling you that earlier because it might be foreshadowing, but it seems like just a big coincidence, so I left it out until now. The woman who seduced the professor went on to seduce a Nobel Prize winner. I guess someone heard that inside that Nobel medal there was some hidden key to a cave that had a bunch of secret shit in it. This turned out to not be true, but seducing a Nobel Prize winner was a big get for the seducer lady. Eventually, she was tasked with seducing some guy who invented a dating app, which turned out to be our same tech guy, and they recognized each other. Boy, did they have a big laugh. Then I think his security team beat her to death. The tech guy kept her skeleton on display in his house. Small world. I think that's the most horrified I've ever seen your face. Oh my God.
Your face is super red.
Oh God,
You're crying.
I'm crying so hard.
You're like wheezing.
I thought it was funny, and then I looked at it like I was already about to laugh because I was like, Jesus Christ. And then I looked up and saw your face, and it was too much. Beat her to death and put her skeleton on display. Oh, my stomach hurts. Okay. Your glasses are fogged. Oh, man. I am the worst person in the world. Reginald disappeared. I immediately told the people at the company everything, and they went back to look for Reginald under the door, but he was gone. Or maybe he was also dead and they didn't want to deal with that, so they disappeared him. The big secret we stole? I have no fucking idea. But I'll tell you, after doing a few more jobs like this, it's never anything cool. No space lasers, no nuclear bombs or whatever. It's always just some computer program that fucks around with like 0.1% of the stock market or something, or like a boner pill recipe. Me? Well, I'm retired now. I found that pooping professionally made it less fun. It wasn't about the pooping anymore. You know that great feeling you get when you wake up and take a nice dump? How you just feel light and free? I didn't feel that anymore, and it broke my heart. So I retired from the game, and all the pooping I do now, I do it for me. I've sold a couple sculptures that I shat out.
Ew.
Because people who are into modern art are idiots. Seriously, if you want proof that money doesn't make you smart, do an opening at a gallery. You show up with a bunch of poop sculptures you literally crapped out, and everyone gets all excited and gives you money. Hopefully you still have some questions, all of which will be answered in my next book. It's more of a how-to. I want to call it Do How-To, but my editor doesn't like that. I asked if he noticed that it rhymes, and I haven't heard back. In that book, you'll learn how to be a Zen master of shit, just like me. A real spinner of shit. Someone who can make something out of shit. Like, imagine a guy sat down and wrote out this whole story, just took his lunch breaks at work and wrote a really stupid story about shit. That's kind of what I do, but with actual shit. It would be really poetic if that analogy was real. If someone wrote out a whole fictional book centered around shit. Hey, analogy. Maybe that's the title. The end.
Did you write this during your lunch breaks at work?
100%, yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's the end of The Hesit-est Heist Ever Heisted, a heist story of a heist, special editor's edition by Peter Dirk.
Yep.
Read for you by Peter Dirk. Laughed at by Poonmaster Flex. So what'd you think?
This is the first book I completed of 2025.
This is the first one on your Goodreads for the year? Mm-hmm. How many stars are you going to give it? That's such a loaded question. You don't have to give it 5.
I don't know what to do.
I only asked to give it either 5 or 1.
Nothing in the middle.
Nothing. Don't give it 3. That would be crazy.
I wouldn't give it 3.
I mean, I'm going to put it on my list because I did read it again this year.
You did.
I'm giving it a 5. I laughed pretty hard a couple times. I gotta be honest. It's kind of weird. It's a little bit like masturbatory to laugh at your own book, but fuck it. I mean, part of the advantage of having a terrible memory is I don't really remember a lot of things. So,
like what happens to a character in the book you wrote.
Yeah. It was funny because like maybe half a page before I was like, I seem to recall something happens to Ace that's really unpleasant. And then I was like, oh, now I remember. Do you think I should write a sequel? Like, should I pull a...
Did you how to?
No. Pull like a, 50 Shades and then it switches to being from the guy's perspective. Could write it from Reginald's perspective.
Or Ace's perspective.
Yeah, is this what fans are clamoring for?
Or you could do a prequel.
Yeah.
And we could learn like how Reginald got here.
Yeah, true. Kind of a Better Call Saul situation.
I mean, this is your most popular book on Goodreads.
I think Pete's exhaustive review of Model Land is my most popular.
Yeah.
Also close second. I think Ghost Dick Private Eye may be more popular than this one. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure. But that one's definitely in this same vein. I guess as a preview for people who are wondering, Pete, where's your next book that features someone really stupid doing something stupid?
Yeah, what's like a stupid thing that you want to just be able to write about?
Well, I have one that is based on Potaween from a couple years ago that's called Phantom of the Hip Opera. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of the diary of a guy who's tasked with novelizing a movie, which is a remake of Phantom of the Opera, but made for an urban audience and, starring rappers and so on. And then I have another one that doesn't have a name. The document name is just like Stupid Time Travel Story. Mm-hmm. And it's a guy who gets a time travel device because he's applying for a boating license and they accidentally send him a time travel license.
Yeah.
And he uses it to do really dumb things.
Anyone who enjoyed the Hesit-est Heist book will likely enjoy the time travel.
Yeah. I think you'll enjoy the plot points in it and the overall...
The character.
It's basically the same guy, but, with time travel abilities. Instead of having one special ability, which is shitting, he has a different special ability, which is time travel. So but yeah, it is funny. Like, I write what I call these stupid books, and it's like, well, what kind of story do I want to tell, or do I think would be fun to tell? Or sometimes I do it based on what kind of story am I annoyed by? And like, I do get annoyed by heist stories because I just feel like they're kind of boring and like they don't make a lot of sense. And I feel like, you watch Ocean's 11 and it's good, but I just feel like there's so much about it that's like the charisma of everyone on screen. And like, it's weird how we have this human thing where I feel like watching a plan come together as planned is like so satisfying in some way. And so I feel like this book was a response to that because it's very unsatisfying.
Did you ever have any idea of what they were stealing?
No, never. And so that's how I got out of it by just saying,
that's
like, who knows?
Yep.
Doesn't matter.
I figured that you hadn't put any thought into that.
I was like trying to come up with things or like
Were
whatever. You? Yeah, but then I was like, I guess I could make it a time belt and then this could be literally the same guy.
Oh, that'd be good. That just seems like a tertiary plot point for you.
Yeah. Well, I think like also once I sort of hit on the idea of making it intentionally dissatisfying, but also I think that's like part of the heist thing too, is it's like they always go into this vault full of gold or whatever. And I'm like, realistically, if you stole something, it would probably be something so boring.
I mean, yeah, today what's valuable is like data.
Yeah, exactly. It would be like, well, now I have all this big data stuff and I have access to an AI that can tell me how to sell effective ads for a fucking flashlight. So I could sell 1 million units of just some normal flashlight. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's like, that is so boring, but I don't know. So that's what I wanted to do for that. And like time travel is another thing. I hate time travel stories because I just think they're all kind of boring. I think the next thing I've been thinking about is a zombie story, because I feel like there are a lot of tropes in post-apocalypse and zombie stories that I find really annoying. I find it really annoying that in like every zombie story, it seems like for some reason society collapses to an extent that they're like, you know what we should do is have a gladiator arena. That's like every post-apocalypse. They're like, we should have some kind of gladiatorial arena. And that makes no sense to me, because it's like the world is kind of a gladiatorial arena. If there's ever been less need for that, it's probably now. And also the trope of the real monsters is us. And there's just a lot of things like that I would like to fool around with. I want to do a space adventure. I wrote a very brief, one of the first things along these lines that I ever wrote was a very brief space adventure. And all I really remember from it was like a guy is like a stormtrooper or something and busts into a spaceship and an errant laser fries part of his backpack and all these Skittles come spilling out, because that's all that's in it. That's all I really remember from that. And that's probably like 20 years old at this point. There was one other thing. I've kind of toyed around with trying to do a rom-com of some sort, but
This would be hilarious because you're really bad at picking up on romantic cues in movies and real life.
Yeah. But I feel like the rom-com, the problem with making fun of it is it's like, I feel that it's fairly self-aware of the ways in which it's dumb. I mean, and I just don't know if anyone cares, because like, you know, the idea of like some lady being a high-powered executive and therefore has no time for a life, but she works at a magazine. It kind of came about more recently because I hit on the idea of like, what I think would be really funny is she's working at a failing magazine, because all magazines are failing now. And so it's like she works in the shittiest office in like a warehouse, and she's like desperately trying to keep it together. And I'm like, yeah, that would keep you pretty busy. Yeah. Trying to keep a magazine going in 2024.
So you can have health insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. Like just to survive. That would probably work. But anyway, those are some of the ideas. I thought about a Western before, which was kind of it was kind of a Lewis and Clark thing. Cause I always thought it'd be funny to read a book about like people exploring the United States or whatever.
Do like an Oregon Trail.
Yeah. Kind of an Oregon Trail thing, but it's like they're seeing all these creatures for the first time, and just someone who hates it. Someone who's like, what the fuck is that? You know, sees a rattlesnake and is like, fuck this. Like, I hate it. Every day somebody in our party gets bit by something and then dies horrififically. He like swole up into a big blood balloon and then died.
Badger.
Yeah, a badger.
Really
Tore a guy's arm off.
Yeah.
It was like, it's the size of a house cat, and it decimated this dude. I don't understand what's happening. And it's like,
why are we out here?
We've got this one that's a badger and this other thing that's a wolverine, which is kind of the same thing, I thought. But the way it murdered this guy was very different. So that's why we decided they're different animals. Yeah, like just how horrible everything would be. And it would be like, put that aside from just, you know, like, well, we all got hungry, so we all just picked a different plant and ate it to see what would happen. And, you know, 2/3 of us are dead now. I don't know. I just thought that would be kind of funny just because the abject terror of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so many people I feel like would just be like, oh, to hell with this. Like, I'm done. So yeah, I've got a range of ideas. And if only I had more time before I shuffle off this mortal coil. I'm announcing that I'm dying, everyone.
No.
Someday. Yeah.
No day soon.
I know that's a big announcement. I may die someday. Most likely will. The end. End of audiobook.
Somebody should. Let's talk about two time. Let's talk about bum wine, yeah. You're asking the question.